Hello, hello. Welcome back to Furry Figures, episode 2. Since we are in the month of Valentine's Day, I went with a theme, 5 fiery females. So we're going to go with some female figures that are fiery and beautiful. One or the other, some combination. It doesn't matter. So there's not going to be any male figures in this video, but if you want a male figure special, just let me know and I'll give the guys some respect. Just kind of narrowing things down because, as you can see, I have so many figures to cover that if I don't narrow it down, I could be here forever. Oh my god. Okay, so let's go with our first furry, fiery female figure, and that is going to be Tigra from Marvel Legends. She's very orange, very bright and colorful, beautiful, bikini-clad 6-inch action figure. I got this figure way back at the start of the channel, and I gave her a pretty stellar review. And about 2 years later, I still think this is one of the greats. This is one of those figures I go back to photograph and fiddle with. I just really, really like her. She's very, very posable, as Marvel Legends always have been. But this one in particular was the debut of the pinless joints. So if you look at the figure, you can actually see that there are no pins, they call them, no visible points of articulation. So the whole thing is smooth, which complements her beautiful female form. Tigra is pretty much nude except for her small bikini, and she shows off those stripes. These tiger stripes are painted up and down her tiger body, and I think it's very, very beautiful. Now, her head is not really traditional anthro or furry. It's very elf-like, which, as an elf fan, I can appreciate that. She has kind of those pointy ears. But I think even the most animal of furries can appreciate this figure for her fantastic body, her long, posable tiger tail, one of the best tails I've ever seen on a 6-inch action figure, and her sharp claws. Tigra comes with interchangeable hands and heads, so she can be angry and fierce, and she can be beautiful and sexy. So there's a lot to enjoy with this figure. Hasbro has made several Tigra figures over the years, some of them more comic book accurate than others. I really don't care for comic book accuracy. I'm not a Tigra diehard. I just want a sexy Catwoman to put in my furry scenes. So for that case, I go with the 2021 retro carded Tigra. I don't have any of the others, so I don't know how they measure against this one. But this one you can find really cheap on the secondhand market, so I highly recommend picking her up. She is an essential for any furry collection, a lovely, lovely feline beauty. Moving on to our next figure, a furry icon of sorts, the ever iconic Rouge the Bat. When we're doing a kind of furry female sex symbols list, you have to include Rouge the Bat. To many, she was the start of their furrydom. And for a long time, it felt like Sega was a little scared of Rouge the Bat because she barely had any merchandise. She had one action figure that came out right when the Sonic X anime released, and after that figure got barely released, I think she may have been like UK or Canada only, she barely existed, then there was nothing for many years. And many companies tried to make Rouge the Bat toys, but they kept getting canceled. So I can't help but wonder if there was some sort of stigma among Sega or even the retailers that they didn't want to buy Rouge the Bat action figures. But it's 2023, technically 2022 when this toy came out, and times are different, and people are finally willing to accept a large-chested Batwoman into their lives. Now, for this video, I'm actually going to recommend the small Rouge the Bat figure, and not the 4-inch, or 6-inch technically, big Rouge the Bat figure. Now, this is surprising, because I don't really care for the Sonic minis. I like the larger figures. I like my action figures to be big. Big. Rouge knows big very well. But with this case, I definitely think Jax did the smaller Rouge justice. If you look at the two compared, you can see that the 2022 figure, the paint apps are not quite there. For one, something about her eyes and face just doesn't look complete. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to describe, but her face just looks kind of washed on the big one, the first one they did. And she has no lipstick. It's barely there. She has like a hint of lipstick. Rouge the Bat is a femme fatale. She is known for her feminine features. She's like furthest removed from a tomboy as you can get, right? On a Sonic scale, you've got Sally Acorn on one end and Rouge the Bat on the other. She is like very, very feminine. So to not give the action figure like her big signature lips, it just seems like a huge misstep to me. And besides that, she also has these hands, if you take a look. They're in a very awkward position with one hand open and then one hand like ready to hold a ball. So I pretty much just use this figure exclusively for volleyball photos. No joke. She's ready to like serve some volleyball and do nothing else. It's such an odd sculpt in the hand. I don't know why they did that. Whereas the newer small Rouge gives her two regular action figure hands to hold any accessories, which I kind of prefer as much as I love my beach volleyball setups. And my final gripe with the big Rouge figure versus the little one is the wings. This is really the do or die. The wings just don't stay on the 6-inch figure. You can do anything with the figure and those wings are just gonna fall off no matter what. This smaller figure, somehow those wings are just locked in there. You really have to like pull at the figure to pull the wings out because otherwise they stay in there good. So I recommend the small Rouge figure. She's, at the time of this video, very common. You can find her at any Walmart store in the United States at a check stand. I don't know about overseas, but I know she's kind of one of those impulse purchases. That's what they do with these mini Sonic figures. They kind of put them at the check lanes. So any store you're at that sells toys, check your check lanes. You'll probably find her by the cash register. And thankfully, I think there's like 2 of her per case, so it's just pretty easy to find. The bigger figure, on the other hand, had much smaller distribution, making her a little tougher to get. I would not recommend paying a premium for this figure on the secondary market. Look at that! Her wing just fell right there in the video. My point is proven. I would just wait. I think Jax is gonna redo this figure. They just redid Knuckles, because that one they kind of fumbled a bit. And who goes with Knuckles? Rouge. There's my Jax prediction right there. Bet you didn't know this was also a Jax predictions video. We're gonna get a new Rouge the Bat, because this one is not good. But if you're a fan of Rouge and you really want a toy to celebrate this lovely femme fatale, pick up the small one. This figure will only run you about $5. An essential for any furry collection. Okay, now going into something a little bit more obscure than Rouge the Bat. A furry character you may not have heard of. Katrina from the Masters of the Universe. This is a He-Man character. It's an episode of He-Man that I've seen where he encounters the cat people. And it's pretty great. There's this lovely lady, Katrina, who kind of acts as like the king's protector of the kingdom that is discovered. And when He-Man discovers the secret kingdom, you know, she and him have a little battle. But they are not the bad guys, they're actually good people. They were just trying to protect their kingdom from the dangers of humanity. And Katrina becomes an unlikely ally of not just He-Man, but Battle Cat as well, who she has a thing for. She's like, hello, big boy. That's what she does. She's like, hello, big boy.
Hello, big boy.
Who are you?
The name's Katrina.
It's a weird episode. I thought when watching it, it may have been a backdoor pilot for another cartoon. The cat people didn't even really look like He-Man. She reminds me more of M. from Star Trek than a He-Man character, which is funny because that character was also animated by Filmation, same studio. So maybe M. and Katrina are some sort of distant cousins or something. But whereas the more iconic M. has never had an action figure, Katrina actually did get a toy. I believe this was from 2018 or 19, when Super 7 had a very brief run of He-Man figures. They gave us Katrina. I don't know what compelled them to do this, other than Super 7 does like to do a lot of sometimes obscure or one-off characters. But I think it's great that a character a lovely cat lady from one episode got such a nice action figure. Katrina is 6 inches, almost 7 inches tall, and she's built like an Amazon. She has a beautiful body and is wearing a bright blue, one-piece kind of swimsuit design, and I just really like this figure. I like how the articulation doesn't detract too much from her figure. They kind of cut her chest joint right below the breast, so it doesn't inhibit her aesthetics. Sometimes what they do with female action figures is they give them like big cuts right across the chest and the legs, and I just don't like it. I like my action figures to have some form, some beauty. An action figure should be good to look at and good to pose, and not compromise. Another real winning feature for Katrina is her tail. I mentioned Tigra having an impressive cat tail. Well, Katrina actually beats her in that contest. She has a beautiful cat tail that can spin all the way around. Look at that. Spin me right round like a record baby. There she goes. But this is a lovely, lovely cat figure. This one's underrated. I have seen the Tigra figure featured on some other furry collecting places, but for the few corners of furry collecting that there are, we're small but mighty, we furry collectors, I never see this one mentioned, and this may be my favorite cat furry figure. I really, really like this figure. I love her head sculpt. I think it's just the right amount of anthro and human to still be feline, but also still be very beautiful at the same time. She has very impressive lips, much more so than Rouge the Bat, and it's very tough to do beautiful lips on an anthro animal design. Maybe it's something in our DNA that is like against animal testing, right? Because they use the lipstick tests on animals, but I just don't like seeing lipstick on an animal. It really just bothers me. A lot of cartoons do this where they'll have a female animal character and they'll give them big lips, and it'll just look atrocious. I get that like lips is an easy way for an animator to convey that a female is sexy, but often with these animal designs, the more attractive female ones don't have lips at all. But with Katrina, they effortlessly balanced a human and animal design. I love her kind of dark tanned skin. It's not quite fur, it seems to be more skin-like, but on the show it's kind of vague, you know, it's very simply animated, so you can't tell if it's fur or skin, and I think they interpreted it beautifully, giving us a cat with a very dark complexion that suits her very nicely. This is a really, really beautiful figure. I recommend her for any furry collection, and I think she's really undervalued. This was a very limited online exclusive figure that you had to pre-order a year in advance. That's how Super 7 does their business. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I'm shocked she's still available for under $100. I thought for sure this one was going to be pricey, and I was able to get her at a great price. Oh, and one more thing. I know I have talked a lot of trash of Super 7 on this channel, but I have a lot of pent-up rage over their Robin Hood action figure, which I still hold as one of the worst action figures ever made. Now, having said that, Super 7 still can make good stuff, and this Katrina figure doesn't suffer from any of the problems of that Robin Hood. She is very sturdy, her joints work fine, this feels like a toy more than a collector's item. You can play with this and pose this and display this, and I display her in a lot of action cat-like poses, you know, jumping, scratching, stretching, and she's held up fine. So this is a wonderful figure with no flaws, and the perfect feline to add to your furry collection. From one feline to another, it's Blaze the Cat from Jack's Sonic the Hedgehog line. This one is new. This is shipping right now at the time of this video. If you hit a couple of Walmarts, you may be able to find her, depending on where you live. I live in California. It's a very crowded state. A lot of people here, a lot of collectors. This figure is really tough to find where I live. But I've heard people in other states have no trouble at all. As a matter of fact, I just took a road trip to Arizona to go to PDFC, and there were tons of blazes everywhere. So Arizona, you were blazing it. Nicely done. I never thought we'd get this figure. Blaze the Cat is such an obscure Sonic character. She really only got to be the star of one Sonic game or two. Sonic Rush for the DS, which was like a handheld game from 20 years ago, and its sequel. and Sonic 06, which really just kind of tainted this character for the longest time. Now I'm going to go on an unpopular opinion and say that I really like Blaze in Sonic 06. I think her love story with Silver is quite beautiful. Now, I've not played Sonic 06, so I never experienced that horrendous game. I just watched the cutscenes on YouTube edited together into a movie, and I really enjoyed it. I just kind of fell in love with the character, and she's had some fun appearances ever since. She showed up in Sonic Generations, which doesn't make any sense because, mechanically, she should be dead. She dies at the end of Sonic 06. How does she appear at his birthday party? And then become a statue and then remember when she died? It doesn't make any sense. Oh well, I'm not complaining. I like Blaze the Cat. And then, besides that, she's pretty much in some of the racing games, and that's about it. She doesn't get featured in any of the Sonic movies, TV shows, cartoons. When she was released back in the day, she was actually carded as an Archie Sonic character, which makes sense. She is much more relevant to the comic books than the games, so I'm not surprised that the toy aisle made her a comic character and not even a video game character. Having said all that, I didn't think we'd ever get a new Blaze the Cat figure, and we did in 2023 last year, and Jax just nailed this figure. A one and done is what I call this. This is a masterclass in action figure making. Everything from the colors to the articulation to the sculpt is so quintessentially Blaze the Cat. This figure is leaps and bounds ahead of that original comic figure. Even her tail is very delicate and beautiful like the one from the games. Her ruffles on her coat are very nicely detailed. On the older figure, they kind of looked more like marshmallows around her hands. This time, they definitely have a more regal, princess feel to them. And my favorite part is the head sculpt. Not only are the colors literally perfect and look just like the game's been 3D printed right in front of us, but I love that they sculpted her in kind of a sad, more demure expression. Blaze the Cat isn't the type of character who's always very happy. She's kind of a sad, gothic girl, and I always really liked that about her. Not every character needs to be happy-go-lucky, and when you have a character like Amy, Blaze is a really nice contrast, a really wonderful contrast, and I think this figure is very, very beautiful and elegant, like Blaze the Cat should be. Pick this one up because in a couple years, I think people will catch on to how good this figure is, and she'll be really tough to find. Oh, and she looks wonderful with fire effects, as you've been seeing in these scenes. You could put any Marvel Legends, the one I have displayed behind her is actually a Mega Block. You could put any fire action figure effect around her, and she just lights up. She just lights up, so that's Blaze the Cat. Coffee sip before our final figure. And our final, fiery, fierce, sexy, and beautiful furry figure that you need to add to your collection is the dragon from Shrek. Yes, I went there. This is Dragon, but her name is actually Elizabeth. Bet you didn't know that. It's said once in Shrek 2, and now is used extensively in merchandising. So if you see this character at Hot Topic and the t-shirt says Elizabeth, now you know why. That's her real name. And Elizabeth is gorgeous. This is a gorgeous action figure. This is a toy that I have wanted my entire life. I had the Shrek 2 dragon figure from Hasbro, and that figure I've talked about before. That's a nice figure, but it's not this. This is the McFarlane Toys dragon, made all the way back in 2001 for the original Shrek movie. So this was kind of like the big deluxe figure of that original line, and McFarlane knows his stuff, because McFarlane sculpts two things very well. Dragons, he's known for his dragons line, and beautiful females. He makes beautiful female figures, and dragon encompasses both of those. Hear me out. I know this is not what you were expecting for number one. I could have went with Lola Bunny or something very simple. Well, joke's on you. I'm not doing any bunnies in this episode. Despite wearing this short, I avoided all the bunnies. That's going to be saved for a bunny-themed episode, because I have a lot of bunny figures. No, I went with the big scaly dragon, and she is big and beautiful. I think the dragon from Shrek could be considered quite sexy. Am I odd for that? Is there something wrong with me? Maybe, but I am man enough to say that. She's very beautiful. I like her kind of half-lid eyes they gave here, kind of the bedroom eyes. She has lips, again, lips incorporated onto an anthro design that I think is almost a little funny. It's very comedic how the lips are kind of just like there on this, what you would typically assume is a big ugly dragon design. Cue donkey, you're a girl dragon.
You're a girl dragon! Oh, sure!
And I just think they did a beautiful job on her body. I love her hands, how they're kind of like beckoning. Like this is right when she's first falling in love with Donkey. She's kind of got those like, I guess you could call them flirty hands. They're definitely got some like messaging in the way she's got those hands bent. Come on, if you're a Furry artist, you know what I'm talking about. She's got that posture. It's the body language. It's all about the body. And she's moving her big dragon body in that way. She's got big thighs and a big detailed belly. A lot to like about this figure. And what I like most is she's got that great posture, that great body language, and she is still super articulated. I looked at this figure for years trying to buy it, and you see boxed examples, and I kind of just assumed this was like the regular McFarlane dragon figures. Now McFarlane is known for his line of dragons, but they're not posable. That's why I don't collect those figures. You can't do anything with them. They're just statues, and I like to pose and move and display my toys. Well, the Shrek dragon has a lot of articulation. Her head can be moved. She's got 2 joints in her hands. Her legs can actually bend. And she's got 2 points of articulation in the tail. And the wings are bendable. They're a little fragile, because they've seen some age. They're supposed to be spread out a little more, but time has not been kind to this toy, which I assume was shoved in a box for a long time, and that's why her wings have been damaged like that. I found this at a thrift store recently. This was an amazing thrift find. I just saw it there, and I couldn't believe it. My mouth actually dropped. I'm like, that's Elizabeth. My beloved Elizabeth. And with this figure, I have almost all of the figures they've made of Elizabeth. There was the Shrek 2 one, there was the McDonald's one, the Mattel Mini. The only last one I'm missing is the RC one that Hasbro did. It's like a big remote control. I can tell you, all of those pale in comparison to this McFarlane figure. Even when the new Shrek toys come out, and I am very excited, we're getting some new Shrek toys soon, they are not going to be as good as this. They're just not, and we're never going to get an Elizabeth figure like this. This is the one to get. This figure is phenomenal. If you like not just Shrek cartoons and animation, but a female Furry collection, you gotta have some diversity. And you gotta have your big scaly girl, because she's big, scaly, and beautiful. And I think she's wonderful and gorgeous. Do you think the dragon from Shrek is beautiful? Let me know in the comments if so. Maybe I'm just losing my mind. But I think she's very pretty. I grew up on these movies. Maybe Dragon was one of my first early Furry crushes. I'm gonna highly, highly recommend, despite the high price tag on this toy. And boy, is this a tough one to get. This figure is incredibly rare, especially not broken. So the pieces that break most on this dragon are the wings, obviously, but also the details on her face. You never see one with all 6 mini spikes and both ears. Almost always 1 or 2 or 3 are broken. Prior to making this video, there was an auction I was watching on eBay. It was about $100 and it was broken, and I almost bought it. That's how crazy this figure is. Finding her fully intact will run you a hefty penny. And even mine is not complete. I found this at the thrift store like this. She's actually supposed to have her chain, her kind of bondage that sits around her when she's all chained up. It's actually the chandelier and the castle that Donkey knocks on her, but it becomes her kind of collar and her chain. So the figure is supposed to be draped in these metal chains, and I don't know, I feel like if I got the figure with the chains, I would just take them right off. I just think, why would you want to cover up this beautiful sculpt? Look at her. She is magnificent. Now I just need to track down Singe from Dragon's Lair. They made like a big Dragon's Lair Singe, and I would like to put them together and see if they can go on a date. Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be great? But yeah, this is pretty much the best scaly female action figure ever made. And is she a fiery Furry? Well, she's not furry, she's scaly, but I think lizards and dragons definitely count. You go to a FurCon, I guarantee you the best suits you see are going to be lizards and dragons. I just went to one, and I saw so many amazing dogs. They were amazing, and I have a better appreciation for lizard and dragon types. And I've always been a lizard guy. I used to have figures of the Gorn and Bosk from Star Wars, like the Bounty Hunter. Yeah, I collected those specific characters as a kid. So, like, I would have a shelf that was only Bosk. Not Boba Fett, not IG-88, just nothing but Bosk all the way down. So, maybe I've always had a real love for the lizard types. And Elizabeth, as far as I'm aware, is the queen of the lizards. This is a must-buy action figure. And with that, another episode of Figures for Furries is done. This one has some of my real favorites, figures that I am passionate about and that I love, and I just had so much fun talking about them. I have so many more toys to cover, but let me know which ones from this episode did you enjoy. Do you have any of these figures? Maybe you don't like one of these figures. Maybe I'm wrong. If so, let me know. And what figures would you like to see? I'm always open to recommendations. Until next time, this has been Austin the Brimstone with Furry Figures. It's the never-ending story.